Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 28th December today, and in this video we are going to solve different types of questions which are very much relevant for your prelims preparation if you are preparing for next year's prelims 2025. You know, before we'll start solving these questions, I would like to give the brief introduction about the video so that if you are new to this channel, you will get more connected with it. And if you are the regular visitors of our channel, I would recommend you to fast forward few minutes so that you will jump directly to the questions part. Coming back to the introduction part, I would like to say that in this video, every day we try to discuss three types of questions. In the first part of our discussion, we discuss questions directly from the current affairs. You know what we do? We take up the most important articles from the newspapers. We break them down into the simplest language possible and we derive the prelims based questions from those particular articles. So that it will give you the idea what part of the newspaper is important for you, what part is important for your prelims preparation, how you should read your newspapers, and what are the possible questions which can be asked from those particular areas, from those particular topics. So this is what we discuss in the first part of our discussion. In this, after discussing the questions with respect to the current affairs, we take up the another towards the second part of our discussion, where we discuss from the static part. You know what we do? If you had followed me, you would definitely know that we had started discussing the static topics also here. And we are right now discussing Indian polity. And in Indian polity, we had almost completed the DPSPs and we are giving that the final touch. So today we will take up a topic with respect to DPSPs and solve a prelims based question from that particular topic which can be asked in the exam. So this is what we do in the another part of our discussion. By this, we will give you the idea how the UPSC can ask different types of questions from the same topic. So this is what we do. After discussing questions with respect to the current affairs and the static part, we shift our approach towards the last part of our discussion with respect to the where we solve some previous year questions to be more precise. You know what we do? We take up every day few previous year questions, we try to discuss them, we try to find out the vocabulary used by UPSC, the methods used by UPSC, and we try to find out the methods by which we can solve those questions if we don't have the proper knowledge, and we try to implement that knowledge how we can and we try to understand how we can implement that knowledge in the upcoming exam. We had completed questions with all the questions with respect to the prehistory, medieval history, and the modern history, also with the India's freedom struggle. And right now we are discussing the physical geography. We had started it recently, and we will solve some questions with respect to physical geography which were asked in our previous exams. We will try to find out all that what I told you here. So this is in a nutshell about the video what we are going to do in this. Now with this I would like to request you guys few things which I believe if you will follow it will help you in many ways. First of all, what you should do if you are preparing for next year's exam, you should start writing these questions or keep note of these questions with yourself. You should develop your own question bank before the exam hall. You know how it will help you? It will, trust me, it will help you in many ways. It will help you in the best way possible. It will help you in cracking your exam if you will read according to me. You know how? For example, when it is the month of May, only few days are left and the anxiety level peaks, your heartbeat peaks, you want to go through everything what you had read. But time does not permit you because you have to clear the CSAT also, you have to go through current affairs, you will have to go through the static part. You would want to know the previous year question analysis what were asked at that time. So time does not permit you to go for this final revision. But if you have these questions with you, very short and straightforward questions with you, and you will read these questions, you will go through these questions will definitely connect you with the current affairs, they will connect you with the static part, it will connect you with the previous year questions, and it will boost your confidence before entering the exam hall. And who knows, as our sources are same as the sources used by UPSC faculty for framing your exams, who knows, many questions can coincide, if not the questions directly. But trust me, at least the concepts will definitely coincide what they are going to ask you from. So it is a win-win situation for you if you will have the notes of these questions and you would revise it before the exam appears. It will definitely boost your confidence. Now with this, I would like to give you the final request, that is, please do subscribe the channel and share it with your friends so that they may also get benefited from this initiative. And do write in the comments what do you feel about the video, what else should we bring for you guys. And if any confusion, if we had created any confusion, we try our best to clear every concept here, but we are humans, sometimes we may miss some words. If there is any confusion, so please do write in the comments, we will try to clear that. Now with this, let's start by solving first question. Here the first question says, which of the following statements regarding the protection of elephants under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 as amended are correct? So it is regarding the elephants, protection of elephants under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So with this, you may ask me a question, sir, what was the need for bringing such question in today's discussion? Why we had brought this question, why from nowhere we had brought question on elephants? The answer to this question is directly from our news article today. As today's news article, it talked about the captive elephants. It basically focused on the captive elephants, the problems associated with it, and the recent amendment which the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change had brought. For example, they brought the captive elephant transfer or transport rules in March 2024. And by reading those rules, we can see there are some points which the ministry has missed with respect to the captive elephants, the important points which they have missed and which can be misused by the people, by those farmers who are farming them. So with this, we had brought this question. Now what are those issues? First of all, to understand the issues with these rules which were brought in March, we have to understand the issue with the elephants, their status, where they are scheduled in, their states with respect to Wildlife Protection Act. You know about elephants, the Asian elephants, which are mostly found in our country. They are scheduled under, they are under schedule one. They are under Schedule 1 of the protection of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So what does they enjoy? They have high degree of protection. Those animals which are under Schedule 1, they have high degree of protection. You know, they are there would be huge punishments for those who will violate those laws which are under Schedule 1, who will go for, there are there are harsh penalties for them, and it is totally prohibited to hunt such animals which are under Schedule 1 of the protection of the Wildlife Protection Act. And also they can only be hunted in case there is some wildlife animal conflict. For example, they would enter into the fields and they can destroy the fields, or the humans, they can harm the humans, then only they can be hunted. And also there are some regulations with respect to the transfer of such captive elephants. Now coming to the elephants, there are two types of elephants. One is in the wild and other elephants which had been caught. So there are different regulations with respect to the captive elephants. And this rule which was brought in March 2024, namely captive elephants transfer or transport rules, it has missed few points in it. There is, for example, it has agreed for the transfer of commercial transfer of these. In a way, it has agreed the commercial transfer of these animals, these elephants. If we will discuss here that should these elephants should the governments let the people transfer these animals from one state to another state for commercial purpose? The answer to that question is big no. But here in this in these rules, it has not been properly mentioned that there would be any ban on transfer of animals for the commercial purpose. So what does it become? The elephant, the wild animal, it becomes the private property of a farmer who uses it for different purposes. So he can transfer it without any hesitation. He can transfer it for the commercial purposes. And also there is no ban on the transfer of elephants between two states. For example, under these rules, there is no ban mentioned about the transfer of elephants between the two states. The elephant can be transferred from one state to another state, and there is no ban with respect to that. And also with respect to this point, those transfers can be temporary. For example, if I own an elephant and in other state they have some wedding ceremony, they can ask me for the elephant. I will give them, I will rent that elephant to them, and it will be kind of a private property to me. So these are some points which the author of this article is not agreeing with. It is against, it is very much against the principle of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. It is very much against the principle of Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. And also with respect to that, if we will see the data about the captive elephants from last few years, it has been stagnant. It has been, stuck by 2675. So what does it mean? For example, if we will go 10 years back, the captive elephants were at of the same number which are right now, which are today. So what does it mean? So it means that either these elephants are not dying, they are immortal, or what they are doing, what the owners of these elephants are doing, if their elephant dies, they are, one thing which I forget to mention, that these captive elephants have chips inserted in them, and by by the help of these chips we are able to understand how many are captive. And when we are seeing that these captive elephants are stagnant, they are static from 10 to 15 years, the numbers are not changing. What does it mean? It means that they are going for, if any elephant is dying, they are transferring that chip to the new one. And one more thing which I want to add here, that you may ask me, sir, or the article today, why we are discussing this question here. Basically, if we recap what it was about, it was actually criticizing the rules which were framed in March 2004, namely captive elephants transfer or transport rules. In it, it was not, there was no ban on transfer of elephants from one state to another. The elephant can be used for the commercial purposes. A owner can sell his elephant for the commercial purposes. If transferring the elephant to another person does not harm, if the initial person is not able to feed the animal very well, so at that time this elephant can be transferred, but not for the commercial purposes. So these rules does not prohibit the commercial purpose, the transfer of elephants for the commercial purposes. And also, there are no ban on the state to state transfer. There is no ban on the temporary transfers. So this is what concerns the author with respect to this article, with respect to this rule. So now coming back to the question, and let's try to solve this question and get more idea about it. Here the question says, which of the following statements regarding the protection of elephants under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 as amended are correct? First statement, the Asian elephant is listed under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, granting it the highest level of legal protection. 100% correct, nothing wrong with the statement. Statement 2, the Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2022 explicitly prohibits. So here, see at the terms, it does not explicitly prohibit. This is the trick which the UPSC also uses. They will give the half true statements. They will try to confuse you. So you have to remember, you have to watch the question very carefully, you have to solve it very carefully. This vocabulary, this is what matters at the end. You may have the proper knowledge, but if you don't look at the vocabulary used by the UPSC, you may mark the question incorrect. So let's see what does the part, let's recap the question again. Let's see again what does the statement 2 say. The Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2022 explicitly prohibits the transfer and transport of captive elephants, aiming to curb their exploitation. No, it does not do it. You can transfer the elephants for if the person is not able to feed them. And also we had seen the rules, it does not explicitly prohibit them. So statement 2 is incorrect. And as I always say that whenever there is extreme statement, most of the time that statement is incorrect. Coming to the third statement, the chief wildlife warden of a state can permit the capture of wildlife elephants in specific circumstances, such as when they pose a demonstrable threat to human life or property, but only after exhausting all other mitigation measures. This is nothing wrong with the statement, 100% correct. Third statement is correct, second statement is incorrect. Coming to the fourth statement, it says the trade in ivory, both raw and worked, is completely banned under the Wildlife Protection Act with stringent penalties for violation. 100% correct, nothing wrong with the statement. So sometimes, these extreme statements are true also, but in very rare cases. So majority of the times when you don't know the proper answer, then it would be the best option for you to mark that that extreme sentence, extreme statement incorrect. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1, statement 3 and statement 4. Correct statements with respect to this question are 1, 3 and 4. So with this, I hope you had understood the protection of elephant under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. You had understood the captive elephant transfer or transfer rules in March 2024. It has been brought out by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. You know what are the issues with it. We discussed that in detail, and I hope we had understood it to the very extent which we are needed, which the UPSC demands us from. So with this, let us move to the another question and try to solve that. Here the question is about which of the following statements is generally true regarding the consumption inequality in India. You may ask me the same question, sir, why we had brought a first question from the environment and ecology and the second question from the economy. So what is the reason for that, why we brought this question here? Article today talks about the average spending, average consumption. It has rose from 3 point. It has the average spending it rose to 3.5% from between August 2023 to July 2024. Now it also, this article basically, this is not what we need to know. It is something which we have to keep the track of, but majorly such things are not asked in the exam. But there was a concept which talked about the consumption inequality, the consumption inequality between the urban states and the urban areas and the rural areas. It basically talked about the consumption equality which used to be very large between the urban and rural areas. It has been seen that this consumption inequality is reducing between rural and urban areas. The consumption has increased from in the rural areas by the 3.5%. In rural areas, in rural India, the consumption has increased up to 3.5%, 3.53% to be more accurate. And for the urban areas, the consumption has increased by 3.48%. So this is what actually was the main point to be discussed here. This inequality which was there in the consumption, it has, by the time now, it is being seen that this consumption inequality is decreasing by time. The consumption inequality between the rural India and the urban India is decreasing. So this is what it is about. This is what the concept is about. If we will try to understand it more in detail what this consumption inequality is, I will give an example here. For example, there are two persons, A and B, and both are earning 100 rupees. For example, A has the bigger family, he has a smaller family, he spends 50 and saves 50. So this consumption between A and B, there is inequality of consumption. He has to spend more, A has to spend more, B has to spend less. Or there may be another reasons also. Why A is spending more? Because he has different sources of income too. That's why he is spending more here. And why B is spending less? Because he has this is the only source for him, and that's why he is saving 50 and spending 50. So this inequality is there. This inequality has created the issue, and it for the betterment of economy, there should be more consumption. So the demand would be more, the consumption would be more, and the economy will be more great. So this is what we need to know about this article. And now with this, let's try to solve the question and get more idea about it. Here the question says, which of the following statements is generally true regarding consumption inequality in India? First statement, consumption inequality is consistently lower in urban areas compared to rural areas. Here let's see this statement again. The consumption inequality is consistently lower in urban areas compared to rural areas. This is totally incorrect, because if here we were comparing between urban area and rural area. Now if we will see in urban areas, the consumption inequality is much more greater as compared to rural areas. If we will compare two people from the rural areas and two people from the urban areas, and if we will compare people in urban areas, the consumption inequality will be more, because there are various issues. There are issues of infrastructure, there are issues of different works. There are issues of there are various issues by which the consumption inequality in urban areas is more as compared to rural areas. So this statement, it is totally incorrect. Statement 1 incorrect. Statement 2, a decrease in agricultural productivity always leads to reduction in consumption equality. Totally incorrect. It is totally incorrect. It does not always lead to reduction. It can also lead to increase in consumption inequality. If mostly we see that we are agricultural nation, if the decrease in the productivity of agriculture reduces, it will definitely lead to the less money in the farmer's hand. It will lead to the less consumption, and it will definitely lead to the less consumption. It will definitely lead to the higher consumption inequality, because the people dependent on agriculture, they will have less money in the hand, so they will spend less, and those who are not dependent on agriculture, they will keep spending how much they were spending. So this may lead to higher consumption inequality. So statement 2 is also incorrect. Coming to third statement, it says consumption inequality is often measured using the Gini coefficient. 100% correct. Nothing wrong with this statement. The Gini coefficient, when it is 0, it means that there is zero inequality. When it is 1, it means that there is high inequality. So statement 3 is correct with respect to this question. Coming to the last statement, increased government spending on infrastructure has no impact on the consumption inequality. Totally incorrect. If the government spends more on infrastructure, it can lead to it will definitely impact on the consumption inequality. It will definitely reduce the consumption inequality. So this statement is also incorrect. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option C. With this, I hope you had understood the topic, the context of this question, as well as the question itself. Now with this, let's move to the another question and try to do it. Here the question is with respect to the Midong Dam, which is on the Yarlung Sango, which is basically the Brahmaputra river. So why we had brought this question here, because the China, they are giving the statement that we had discussed, we had done the thorough studies of the Midong Dam. We had discussed about we had did the thorough studies of the environment there, its impact, and they said that it is in no way going to harm India and the Bangladesh, which is totally, what they are trying to prove, I don't understand. As if we have very better relation with China, they cannot misuse it against, which is totally absurd if we believe so what the China is trying to say right now. So they had now invested huge money in that, and they are going to work on that. So with respect to this, we need to know more about it, what it is. This becomes important for us. So let's try to solve this question. Here the question says, consider recent discussions regarding transboundary water resources. Which of the following statements about the Medang Dam is are correct? First statement, the Medog Dam is a proposed hydroelectricity project planned on the Warlong Sango River in Tibet, close to Indian borders, which is basically which becomes Brahma. So this statement is totally correct, nothing wrong with it. Second statement, concerns have been raised that the construction of the Medong Dam could potentially impact the flow of the Brahmaputra River in India and Bangladesh. 100% correct. There are concerns, they can weaponize it against India. They can do it in many ways. It is a gravity dam. They can cause floods in India, or they can cause drought in India. They can do anything. They can weaponize it against India. Third statement, the project is being undertaken as part of China's border strategy for hydropower development in the Tibet Plateau. 100% correct, nothing wrong with the statement. Fourth statement, India has formally conveyed its concerns regarding the potential downstream impacts of the dam to the China government through established diplomatic channels. 100% correct, India has done so, and China has given us that they are not given us they have told us that they are not going to harm us. It is not going to harm India in any way, but trust me, it has worse impact on India than China. They can weaponize it against us. One more thing about this dam, it comes under the seismic zone, under the earthquake zone, and any crack in that will definitely impact Indian geography there. So it can definitely impact the northeast India there. So there are huge discussions over it, but China is still going for this dam. Now with this, I hope you had understood it. Now with this, let's move towards the last question of discussion. And with respect to the current affairs. Sorry, here the question says it is about the shock syringes. Let's see what does the question say. Shock syringes recently seen in news, which may be alternative to the traditional needle syringes, is an initiative which of the following. It is developed by IIT Bombay. It was a little update, so I feel that such questions may be asked in the exam. Such few inventions, new inventions, they are often sweet sweet thing for the UPSC faculties. The UPSC faculties like such topics and they ask you such questions. Now with this, let's move to the another question, sorry, from the static from the current affairs part, and after that we will shift towards the static part. This question is about the HEFA. As you can see here, which of the following statements regarding the higher education financial agency are correct? Now, why we had brought this question here? Because there was an interesting article in the newspaper today which talked about the marginalized by the which by the name of the article was as marginalized by the cost, marginalized in education. So what does it mean? If we look at the history of our country, we'll see there are different communities. Even though we are improving, we are giving the reservation to them. But if we look back into the history, they were very much deprived. They were discriminated. They had no touch with the with the public. They were very much discriminated and deprived. So there was a need to improve them. So, and India has brought up reservations with respect to that. India has brought different articles in Indian constitution itself with respect to that to overcome this gap, but still it existed. If we will see the recent data, if we will see that manual scavenging in our country, 92% of this is done by the lower costs. If we look into the Indian jails, the toilets, they are cleaned by those people who belong to the lower castes. So these issues are still in our country. If we will see our schooling system, in especially in villages, the students from those depressed classes, they are not allowed to sit with those students who belong to the higher classes. So this caste discrimination is still prevailing in our country. But after all this, these issues are there. Now, when we'll talk about our higher educations, when these students, by for example, they will crack the exam, they will go on the merit or by reservation, they will reach the higher educations, but here comes the another issue. What that issue is? That issue is of the fee. They have to pay high number of fees. They have to pay huge amount of money to those colleges to get their knowledge. And because of this burden, because of the burden of the fees, it has been found out that from last 5 years, more than 13,500 students belonging to these discriminated classes, belonging to these depressed classes, maybe scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs, they had, what they did, these students, they had withdrawn from the colleges. They are dropouts of the colleges because they are not able to pay this fees. And if we blame the system, whom we should blame? Then now let's have a look at the new education policy which the government has brought with higher education. Then you may connect it more. If we will go back to the before 2019, there was a different issue with respect to that. There was the subsidization of education. What used to happen for the higher education? The UGC, they will give grants to the colleges, and because of those grants, they were not payable. These colleges, they don't have to pay that back to the UGC, and because of these grants, the fee of the student would be very less. So the students who are not able to pay the fee, that amount would be reduced. It was very less. For example, if those grants are not there, the fee would have been 15,000. Once those grants are given by the UGC, then this fee would have reduced to seven to half maybe. So in this way, it helped before 2019. It helped to the these students who belong to the lower caste, who belong to the low economic, who does not have that economic condition at home. So they were able to get the education to some extent. But once this was replaced, this system, it was after 2019, it was replaced by HEFA, this higher education financing agency. What they will do, they will this higher under this higher education financing agency, joint venture between the government of India and the Canara Bank. What they will do, they will raise money for the colleges, and they will pay it as a loan to the colleges, which the colleges have to pay back. So how does it how the colleges responded to that? The colleges responded, as they have to pay this loan back to them, they did, they raised the fee of the student. The students belonging to these depressed classes, to these low income classes, were not able to pay the fee, and eventually the dropout rate of these students is on rise. So this is the major issue with it. Now, what can colleges do? How this, this can be answered, how this question, how this problem can be answered. There should be, as the article talked about, there should be separate division of, there should be separate and talked about this, there should be a separate slabs for the fee. If your economic capabilities of 10,000 rupees, you should be able to pay that. It should be, the fees payable to the student, it should be differentiated in different ways according to what their financial conditions, or according to that the fees should be paid by the students. And now if we will recap what we understood from this article, if we will see, there are reservations, and if the government is giving reservations to these depressed class students, they are cracking the exams, they are entering the colleges, even then they are not able to complete the education because the fees in the colleges is very high. So the concept of reservation goes in vain here, even though we are giving reservation, but it is not helping these students. So in case to overcome this issue, the author is recommending few changes. One is, there should be different slabs for the students which they should pay, and others issue, and this fee structure, it should be reduced. And also, if the government should try to bring the previous fee structure back, the government should try to go back to the what was in 2000, what was happening in 2019, the government should try to bring that back. So this is in a nutshell about the article. Now let's try to solve this question and understand more about it. Here the question says, which of the statements regarding the Higher Education Financing Agency HIFA are correct? First statement, HIFA is a joint venture between the Government of India and Canara Bank. 100% correct, nothing wrong with the statement. Second statement, HIFA provides financial assistance for creation of infrastructure and research and development in premier higher educational institutions in India. 100% correct, nothing wrong with the statement. Third, HIFA finances projects through equity participation, not through loans. Totally incorrect. It provides projects through loans which the colleges have to pay back, and that is the major reason why the fee structure has increased in the colleges. Then the fourth statement, all higher educational institutions, including private institutions, are eligible to receive funding from HIFA. No private education institutes are not allowed to receive money through HIFA. So this statement is very much incorrect. Now with this question, the correct statement would be option A and B. The correct option would be option A, that is 1 and 2 only. So with this, I hope you had understood the issue of HIFA, the issue faced by the lower income people by when they enter into the colleges, what are the issues which they face, and also the other other societal issues which they already are facing. And after even though after all that struggle, when they enter into the colleges, they face the economic issues and they are not able to complete the education. So this is the whole nutshell of this article. Now with this, let's move to the another part of our discussion where we will solve the static topic question today, and let's see what we had brought. Today's question, it is about it is about the DPSPs. Let's see what does the question say. Which of the following directive principles of state policy reflect Gandhian principles? So here we had brought the DPSPs. Now we have to see which of them reflect the Gandhian principle. Questions like that are often asked in the exam, and they had been asked many times. And let's try to find out what are these questions. What are these DPSPs which reflect a Gandhian principle? If about Gandhian principle, I need to, I would give you a little number of articles which you need to know, which are very much related to Gandhian principle. Which, first of all, Article 40, which it talks about Panchayati Raj. It is associated with Gandhian principle. Then we have Article 43, associated with Gandhian principle, which talks about village and cottage industries. Article 47, it is also associated with Gandhian principle, which talks about prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and of drugs which are injurious to health. And also we have Article 48, which talks about the banning of cow slaughter. So these articles, they reflected the Gandhian principles. Now coming back to the question here, let's understand more through this question about the DPSPs, which reflect Gandhian principles. First statement, it says to organize village panchayats and endow them with necessary powers and authority to function as the units of self-government. 100% correct. It reflects the Gandhian principle. Mahatma Gandhi always endorsed this concept that there should be local governance. They should be given the authority. Coming to the second statement, to secure the participation of workers in the management of industries. No, it was not. It is not the part of the Gandhian principle, but to promote cottage industries on an individual or corporate basis in rural areas. This is what the Gandhian principle speaks of. Also, to prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and of drugs which are injurious to health. This is also a Gandhian principle. So with respect to this question, the correct statements would be statement 1, statement 3, and statement 4. And from the code given below, the correct code would be option B. And with respect to the Gandhian principles, what are the articles associated with it? It is Article 40, Article 43, Article 47, and Article 48. With this, I think we had done good discussion over the DPSPs which reflect Gandhian principle. Now with this, let's shift towards the last part of our discussion where we solve a previous year question. Here, today's question is from the geography. As I already told you, we are done with ancient history, we are done with medieval history, we are done with modern history, we are done with India's struggle of independence, and now we had started with the physical geography. And today's question is also from the 1995 question paper. It was asked in 1995, and the question speaks as, which of the following is the continent with the highest mean elevation in the world? Without any doubt, it is Antarctica. So with this, the correct answer to this question is option A. With this, we complete today's discussion. I hope I was very much clear in explaining the concepts today. I was very much clear in explaining the questions today, in solving these questions, and also giving you the context of these questions. With this, I would like to say goodbye to you all, guys. I hope you will do best in your career. I hope you will do best what you are preparing for. Till tomorrow, I don't know what time you will watch it. If in morning, good day. If in evening, good night. Have a great time. Thank you for staying with me.